Hello, Hopkinton. It is Friday afternoon, and welcome to this edition of the Hopkinton Hangout Hours. Today, host is me, Matt Clark, everyone's favorite master control operator. And today, we're going to be talking about board games. It's a great time to play that board game, that classic favorite, maybe from when you were a kid that you haven't played in a while. Play with family, play with whoever you're, in isolation with. And my guest today is, we have Bob Hamilton and Tom Nappy, and also my friend Alex Kershey is joining us once again.
Hi, how are you?
Hey, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So, Alex, obviously, I think you're probably my friend who's the most into board games. You definitely have the
Sure,
biggest collection.
sure.
So, are you playing anything with your family right now?
Yeah, we're playing plenty of things. Sorry, my father had to fix a fuse.
Oh, that's
Um,
okay.
um, uh, yeah. So we've been trying a lot of things. It's been another silver lining, as always, is the ability to force my family to play board games with me. Yeah, we've been trying new things. We've been steadily trying new things. Obviously, we've been returning to sort of iconic board and card games. Like we've played a lot of Uno,
Ooh,
which is a waking nightmare, but is great because it
that's the
goes
best
for
way to describe
it
Uno.
goes for between 10 minutes to 4 hours every time you play a single game of what should be the simplest card game. Um, we've been playing some other games. There's a game called Pass the Buck, which is sort of a delegation corporate card game where everybody has secret departments that they are able to complete tasks of. Like you might be in marketing or might be in sales or legal, but nobody else knows that. But they can ask you if you can complete tasks for them, and you can lie about it. But if they call you out on a lie and you were lying, then you have to take all of their tasks of that type, which means that it's about like figuring out what everybody is and sort of a hidden identity meets also like a completion or go fish style gameplay. On top of
Yeah,
it,
I love that
actually,
game.
yeah, it's
It's
great.
it's really interesting, and we met the creator of it.
We did. Shout out to Carol Mertz, board game creator. Um, what else? I've been trying to get them to play Betrayal, which I know is one of your favorites, and
Oh
we're
yeah,
just
I was gonna bring that. I actually have my copy of it right next to me.
um, but we'll get to that in a minute, I guess. We've also been playing Mysterium, which I definitely recommend to people who like art and sort of deduction games. In Mysterium, one player is a ghost, and the rest of the player are different types of psychics. And the ghost can't speak, but can hand people art cards, and those art cards serve as clues to um, people, places, and things, so that you can help solve a murder. So there's like art cards of a bunch of different people that could have done the crime, and then you give a different set of art cards to the players so that they can try and guess who they're supposed to be, like who they're supposed to be finding based
Hmm.
on what like cues the art gives. And the game was deliberately constructed so that that's extremely confusing and often very difficult. But it's a really great game because it requires very little time to learn, and the like best asset of it is how well you know the players that you're playing with,
Yeah,
which means that it's really good for family time.
yeah. Our group has had a lot of variance in our success with playing that game.
Sure, that's true. Um, what else? I mean, obviously, there's also classics. Uh, Life. Who doesn't like the game of Life? The answer is some people, but I think it's pretty good.
I haven't played the game of life in so long.
I
I
really
used to play it
like
a lot of my
Life.
aunts, but
Life was one of my favorite classic board games.
really,
Yeah, Taboo isn't really a classic board game, but it is that same type of. I like Taboo. Taboo is fun. Taboo is, in case you don't know, you have a word that you're trying to get your team to guess,
that's right.
but there's a list of words you're not allowed to say, and you're not allowed to say the word. So it'll be like pirate, but you can't say parrot, ship, gold, booty, etc. And then
I don't think I've ever played Taboo.
it's great.
Yeah,
Um, I don't know. There's a lot of board games around. A lot of board games around. I think it's a good time to bring back classics. Try new things. You can sort of I don't know if you can if this is something you want to spend time on. You can research and get board games shipped to you. I suppose right now.
no, you absolutely can. In fact, this is a little bit different, but like my mom has been doing a lot of puzzles, and she's just been ordering puzzles online. You do the same thing with board games.
I was hoping that the New York Times would offer a sale on their crossword subscription due to this trying time, but no, it's still the normal $15. But hey, you know what? I might have to just bust it out because of how much I love crosswords.
Mm-hmm.
Not a board game, but another good way to spend your time. I'm trying to think. I've got so many board games. We've been playing also like manual dexterity games. There's a game called Cobra Paw, which is like you have to put your finger on little blocks that you roll randomly and then try and like scoop up them, but you can take them from other people if they get rolled and other people have them. And it's just a fun. I don't know. I think that it's just what's nice about playing board games now is that it's a way to spend time when you're with people because I think that even with like work and with other things that we're dealing with, there's a lot of our free time is constructed very differently now. And I think board games are a good way to foster a sort of connected togetherness within like a structured rule set. If you want to spend like 15 hours with your family, play Monopoly.
That might have some more detrimental effects in in the long run if playing
Monopoly.
Monopoly.
Be a little
these
ruthless
days.
about Monopoly. You can play some board games and things remotely. There's a game called Codenames that's pretty easy to play remotely. You can play that with your friends who aren't in quarantine with you now. I mean, obviously that means that you're playing it digitally, but it's still a remote board game. There's actually a lot of websites that already existed that are receiving a lot of traffic right now. Websites that sort of say like, oh, here's how if you want to run this board game remotely, you can run this board game. Or people are playing Magic the Gathering and stuff. Obviously, I always recommend Magic the Gathering, but that's not like you buy it and then learn it by yourself in one day and then play with your family type of game.
No, that's a buy it and devote your soul to it.
It's an investment. But it's good. Also, we've already talked about RPGs, but just play Dungeons and Dragons with everybody. Just do it. It's fine.
Just try it. Just try it once.
I'm trying to convince my family to play D&D while we're inside.
That would be. I would love to hear the story of your parents playing D&D.
They'd be good at it.
They would. Because I know your sister has played. Has she? She's never played D&D with us.
No, she has. She has played D&D with you guys, but she has played D&D. She played. Her first edition of D&D was 3.5, which means perfectly balanced as all things should be.
I forget a lot that my first edition was also 3.5.
I don't know how you could forget.
The reason for that is because I never really understood what I was doing in 3.5.
Yeah,
I didn't understand what I was doing
that then. I could have helped you understand what you were doing, and then.
I mean, I never had the books.
I know. You don't have to have the books. They're all free.
I didn't know that.
Online.
The reason I learned is because
legally
Will wanted to DM a game back in 2015. I was like, hey, can someone send me the PDF for the book? And I looked through the book and I did what the book said, and I was like, oh, this is easy.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just a lot of board games. I don't know. Just board games is always fun. Board games are always fun, whatever they are. There are bad board games, to be sure, but
so what
it's nice to just
I was gonna say, what would you say is your favorite if you could pick one, or is that like
it's impossible, but
picking a favorite child?
I don't know. I don't know, like picking a favorite child necessarily, but I don't know. A lot of my answers to that question would be extraordinarily like niche and would not necessarily be me recommending those games. Honestly, the big picture, like recommendation on the favorite board game, or like my big picture on the favorite board game situation is there are so many and they're all so specific. And some people like games that are sort of mechanically agnostic from their theme, like that like, oh, the game could be any theme. Like it could be, like I think that a lot of so there's like the 4 pillars, right?
Yes.
Which are the 4 pillars essentially of building games, where one is called Ticket to Ride, which is about making and completing train routes. And one is called Settlers of Catan, which I think a lot of people have played, but which is about, resource management and building trade routes, kind of. And Alhambra, which I have no idea what it's about because I've never played it, and Carcassonne, which is about sort of spreading out land. And one of the things about these is that mechanically they work as games, but that's distinct from their theming in a lot of ways. Like they don't have to have like Ticket to Ride probably has to have the train theme, a Catan doesn't have to have the island theme. These games don't have to have the themes that they have.
Yeah,
Whereas I tend to like, even though this is not necessarily as 100% always like gameplay consistent, I tend to like games personally that like their theme is an important part of how they work, like Betrayal, which we should talk about.
yes.
I think Betrayal is my favorite like obvious party game. I love Cosmic Encounters, but I've only gotten to play it like the one time, and I don't have any copy of it. So
That was the one we played a few weeks ago.
where we all
right?
choose between
Yep.
one of 50 alien
Yeah.
races, and
Yep.
you have to interact with people's planets and make extra planetary colonies. And
I think that was a great game. That was one of my greatest moments in playing a board game too. Where, except for you, everyone just continually wronged me, even though I was nothing but a good force in the universe. And then when push came to shove, I fought back and I won. And me and you both won together.
We won together. So good. I love cooperative board games. If you're a family that has problems with if your family has problems with playing competitive games because it gets too heated or something, there's plenty of board games where you're all working together. A lot of good ones. Well, I'm not gonna talk about that game, but I was about to say a really the most beloved cooperative board game, but I think it's a little bleak given the situation that we're in, because it's about solving disease-related crises and things. But Betrayal is one, actually. Interestingly, Betrayal at House on the Hill is a cooperative board game until the moment that it isn't. Betrayal. I think that my gut says that even though there are board games I like playing more from moment to moment, Betrayal is the one I'm going to say for the sake of. Betrayal is a horror movie themed board game where each player plays as like a horror movie character, and you're all like exploring a big house together and like finding items and omens and causing events to happen.
Spooky events.
But then at some point during the night, after a certain number of omens is uncovered and the haunt roll has been failed, because every time somebody gets an omen, you roll a haunt roll, right?
Mm-hmm. And the more omens, the more likely it is to fail.
And when the haunt roll fails, the haunt begins. And the haunt is triggered based on what specific omen was found that caused the haunt to happen and what room it was found in. And then there's a list of 50 haunts, more with the DLC. I was gonna say more with the expansion.
It's 100 with the expansion.
And then those haunts have different rules. And sometimes you're still together. Sometimes none of you are together. And sometimes there's a traitor. And the traitor grabs one of the books, and the other players, the other explorers, grab the other book, and then you read your rules for that haunt, and it fundamentally alters what's going to happen in the game. Because now all of a sudden, after you've all been working together the whole time, the one guy who maybe you helped get his knowledge all the way up because you thought that would be helpful to you later in the game, maybe he's the traitor, and all of a sudden you have to deal with this really smart traitor. Or maybe none of you are the traitor, but none of you are on the same team because there's only 3 parachutes that you have to get or something. There's so many different variants on how the game can progress. So there's this period of the early game where everyone is together, but there's the knowledge that in the future, someone either will betray you or something else bad is going to happen. And not even the person who's going to be the traitor knows.
Yeah, I absolutely love that game. You obviously introduced it to me, and we played it a bunch several years ago. And then I bought my own copy, and I introduced it to my college friends.
Yeah.
And they introduced it to some of their friends. And did I ever tell you? I think I did. But so whenever the haunt is revealed, you would yell,
"To the tomes!"
So I started doing that as well in my own games. And so did my friends. So
so good.
Yeah. Maybe someday that'll just be done by everyone who plays. That's my dream.
It'll have spread out.
Yeah. But I want to for the next little bit, I want to get to social media reactions about this, because we actually had quite a bit. And we have Tom here, you engaged on Facebook and everything about this, Tom. What did people have to say about their favorite board games?
Yeah, we got some good feedback. We actually got some YouTube feedback as we're live today. Feel free to comment on our YouTube page or our YouTube live stream. Our good friend John Ritz says he's playing a lot of Cards Against Humanity. I know that's a popular one.
Oh, yeah. Here.
Popular not so family game.
Absolutely.
If you want a
fun game to play with friends.
Yeah. Or your family if you're, they're less judgy.
Oh, I love this. I love this CSI Crime Scene Investigation DVD game. I've never played that one, but I love um Atmosphere was my favorite one of those, which was the Canadian name. I didn't know that at the time, but it's the only one I had of a there's a series of
Oh, wow.
horror games.
That's a picture John Rich shared with us on our Facebook.
That's a nice
Hey,
collection.
I love it. I love it. Look at that CSI DVD game. Yahtzee, always good. A variants of Yahtzee, always good. A lot of games riff on the Yahtzee rule set. There's a game called Dice Throne, which is the Yahtzee rule set, except each character is a heroic character that can trigger different abilities based on what Yahtzees they roll. So like, oh, this person got a straight. That means that they can use their sword attack or whatever. You know, like their
I love that game.
it's very interesting. I've never heard of Quantum.
I feel like I have heard of Quantum, but I don't know what it is.
I'm gonna look at it right now. Quantum. Well, first of all, I like the cover. It's I was assuming it was a science fiction themed board game. There's a robot of some kind on this. There's some dice. Is this a planet claiming game? That looks interesting.
Some of the other reaction that we got on our Facebook page was Trivial Pursuit.
Yep, always a trivia game. Love a trivia game.
Scrabble.
Yep.
Yeah.
A lot of people actually said Scrabble. Ticket to Ride.
I love that game.
Sequence. And of course, the classic Monopoly.
I like Sequence. We've talked about most of those other games on some level. We haven't talked about Scrabble. Scrabble's great, but it's what's the word I'm looking for? I mean, it's Scrabble, so everyone knows one person is going to take 30-minute turns and then have a like 180 point word, and everyone's going to say, how did you do that? And it's fun. I haven't played Sequence in a long time, but I have played Sequence.
I don't know Sequence.
Categories, Backgammon.
Yeah.
Trouble. That's a
lot
good
of
one.
a lot of good classic board games here. What else?
I haven't played categories in years.
You know, I think the Monopoly does really. I know we've already called it out, but I think Monopoly does deserve a call out for being pretty universal and extraordinarily goofy in the level of shenanigans it can get to. The sheer ruthlessness.
It is a game demands ruthlessness.
Yeah, I also have to, for the sake of my core being, recommend games like One Night Ultimate Werewolf and Resistance. If you have enough people for them, which you can't really play them consistently with Resistance, you literally can't play with fewer than 5.
Yeah.
But One Night Ultimate Werewolf, I don't recommend playing with fewer than 4. And honestly, these are games that get better the bigger they get. But these are games where characters have hidden identities and hidden sort of agendas. So in Resistance, in a group of 5, 2 people are spies and 3 people are not spies, and you have to figure out who you want to send on missions so that they don't fail. But if the missions fail, then it's because of the spies. And it's a really interesting sort of practice in trying to hide information and have an identity and figure things out. In One Night Ultimate Werewolf, which is a sort of 1-round version of the game Werewolf or Mafia, which you might have played in large groups, or if you have a sort of a theater background or a party game background, where there's like a werewolf team and a villagers team, and people have different roles inside of that team. So the seer gets to see what one other person is, or what 2 of the roles in the center are. The troublemaker switches to people, which means that they become whatever they were switched to, but they don't know that they were switched unless the troublemaker reveals this information. So there's all this sort of accusations flying and people trying to do the math of who could possibly be what and what's a good or bad claim to be. And I think it's a good hidden identity game is like among the most satisfying gameplay experience that you can have if it doesn't actively stress you out, which some people are actively stressed out by things.
Well, funny you mentioned that. I am incredibly stressed out by those games, though I found recently I'm actually less stressed out if you're on the bad team, the bad guys.
Yeah, of course. You have the good information.
Yeah.
Because
Because then it's just a matter of hiding yourself, which is fairly easy to do.
Yeah,
and I find that the best way to do that, as I famously have shown out, is if you're about to be found out, you accuse loudly and you accuse first.
Yeah. I will say that one of my extraordinarily common And I don't like getting into strategy too much about these because I love getting into strategy about these, but I don't want to reveal all my secrets.
You have a lot of secrets.
Basically, 75% of the time, it's safe to accuse the other person who's on the bad team if you're going to lose.
Yep.
Like if it's clear you're going to lose, in certain games. In Werewolf, that's not true because in Werewolf, if the other werewolf gets got, you lose. Like the werewolf team loses if any werewolf is killed at the end of the night because you vote on one person or any number of people with ties to like sort of to be the one who loses that round. And if you all point to like a werewolf as villagers and that you outvote any of the werewolves, then you win. Then the villagers all win, unless there's a tanner, in which case the tanner loses. But the tanner is a role who wants to lose. That's what the tanner's thing is. So if the tanner loses, the tanner wins. So that's what that is. But don't worry about this. This is all really niche. The point is games like that. I feel like there's another big third obvious good hidden identity game. Oh, Avalon is one that people like. There's a fourth big obvious one, but I probably shouldn't talk about it on TV right now.
Did you guys ever hear of this game? This is what Mike Tarosian commented, Exploding Kittens.
I've never played it. It's extraordinarily popular. I've never played it.
Interesting. And then somebody said, of course, the board game, which I think has the best movie based on that board game, Jumanji.
Jumanji, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Well, because
played the Jumanji board game.
It's good. It's pretty good.
It does not create a jungle around you. I was disappointed.
Yeah, you don't...
2 out of 10 would not recommend.
No.
I don't know. It's a fine game.
Yeah, I like it.
You don't turn into Jack Black.
Yeah, nor do you turn into... Well, I guess he didn't turn into anybody, but Alan Parrish, Robin Williams in the original film.
Not who I thought you were going to say.
Who do you think I was going to say? Karen Gillan?
Karen Gillian.
Kevin Hart?
No, I mean there's like a board game out there for everyone.
I think there is. I truly think there is. I agree with that.
I think,
and there's a level of complexity question too. Like, how complicated do you want that game to be that day?
Yeah,
because you can play a really simple game like Uno, or you can play an extraordinarily complicated game like Axis and Allies, or to a lesser extent Risk.
I think Risk might be Stealth, one of my favorite games.
You know, it's weird. I never played Risk until after I played Diplomacy and Axis and Allies, which are like a complexity step above Risk. So I never had any like. And I think Risk is weirdly hard because there are, like in Risk, there are predetermined sides, correct?
Yes, there's
the Axis and the Allies?
No, there's each color. It's like red, yellow, green, blue, black.
No, my point is more, is every player against every other player in Risk?
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, they are.
There's no like factions?
No.
Yeah, it's harder for me if there's no faction, or alternatively, if there's no possibility of creating a faction. Diplomacy lets you. Diplomacy is essentially Risk or Axis and Allies, but there's no factions, like there's no Axis or Allies, and you each round have a 15-minute period where you just get to talk to everybody else privately or whatever. Like the best way to play Diplomacy is to just go to whoever has the biggest house and then have secret meeting rooms that you go to and just be like, yes, this is the room where we swear we're not going to fight one another. But then you go to another room and they're like, they swear they're not going to fight one another. And then it's just a lot of like.
I would try Diplomacy, though, given my experience with Axis and Allies, I feel like I might not care for it as much as I like Risk.
That's fine.
I don't know. I mean, the one time we played Axis and Allies, we played for 2 hours, got 2 turns done, 2 full rotations, and then stopped playing.
I will admit, large-scale tactical war games are not my favorite board game type. I'm always interested in what they are. Like, I always want to try them, but then it's like I'm not that good at them, and they're not really my
in Axis and Allies defense, if I remember correctly, because this was quite a few years ago at this point, I think I could have ended the game on my last turn if I had pushed just a little bit harder and successfully taken 1 extra city. Because I think the win condition in that game is just to capture 2 cities. Because the point is
to capture a percentage of the cities. But yeah, in that case, it would have been 2.
I think it was just 2 for us.
Yeah.
So,
what a game. What a world.
yeah.
So, Matt, most of these games that I've heard you guys discussing, it sounds to me like you'd have to invest a lot of hours to get good at it or even to play the game. Any of them that takes less time than that?
Some of these aren't as bad as they sound like they'd be. Betrayal, for example, I think takes actually like 10 minutes to learn how to play.
Yeah.
Some of them are a lot.
I mean, yeah, like the information gathering games that we mentioned, like Resistance, those games take a while to learn the strategies.
But only like a couple minutes to learn how to actually do.
Yeah.
Like you can start right away. You become rapidly better at them the more rounds you do. But
yeah, like I have never actually gotten a hand of One Night Ultimate Werewolf. I just don't understand the information aspects of it. But I know Resistance really easily after just a few rounds of it. But yeah, no, I think most board games are fairly simple, depending on how good at you are at understanding rules. Like I can't pay attention when someone's just reading the rules to me. I prefer to learn while I play.
I think that there are games that are much more difficult to learn than other games. Like I think Axis and Allies is more difficult to learn. I think a lot of these games are more difficult to learn. But I think that
Camelot, one of my favorites.
I think honestly, a relatively good metric for figuring out how complicated a game is going to be to learn is how excited you are about learning it based on a brief description of what it is. Like because any person can learn. Okay. Any person who wants to learn how to play a specific game can probably learn how to play that game. Now, there are games that I am not suited to playing. Like, I'm not really suited to playing Axis and Allies or those other war games. My brain doesn't really work the way that the strategy of those games wants it to sometimes. So I'm sitting there and I'm like, I don't know necessarily what I'm supposed to do next, and I don't know if I care about what I'm supposed to do next. And because of that like might not be the game for me. But I think that a lot of the cases, like if you see Betrayal and you're like, oh, this sounds great, and then you read a brief description of it. If you're looking to try new games, there's websites like Board Game Geek, and even sometimes the Amazon Board Game Geek I think is good at it. If you look up the games specifically you're looking at on Board Game Geek, there's a lot of tutorials or descriptions of gameplay that are often much clearer or much more letting somebody know whether they want to buy or play this game oriented than what the actual game provides on its website or whatever. But I think that like it doesn't take that much research, I think, to find ways to figure out whether or not you think a new game is going to be something that's good or interesting for you. I always check on board games I find on Board Game Geek just to see what people think about them or what type of game they actually are. They're also board games are I would say like a middle tier of expensive. A board game will often, especially the types of board games we're talking about, will often drop you $50, $60. So it's important to know before you make that investment. That said,
you can get them cheaper online too.
You can also, on like Amazon and things. I bought Betrayal for $50, and I've played it literally dozens of times. I mean, if you think about it in terms of like the number of hours you would spend on like a movie or the number of hours you would spend on other forms of entertainment, you recoup a lot of the time invested in board games if you like playing them. The thing is that it's not the cheapest investment 100% of the time. It's not as expensive as say Magic the Gathering or like a card game would be overall, probably, but it's a cost benefit analysis that you kind of have to make, I guess is what it is. Like if you feel excited about a board game, maybe that board game is exciting to you.
Yeah.
And because of that, I would say that's a better metric than anything in terms of determining whether or not something is going to be a hassle to learn.
Yeah. Like you mentioned Betrayal, which I bought Betrayal for cheaper because I bought it online and I had to get an Amazon gift card that I was spending at the time. So I think I spent more closer to like $25 on my copy.
Yeah.
But Betrayal comes with 50 different haunts. And every game will have a haunt, and it also has rules that if the group you're playing with has already played a haunt, you can do a different haunt. So that's 50 different games, essentially unique playthroughs for $50. So a game like that is worth your buck. We do have to wrap up at this point, Alex. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank
We
you
hope
for
with that
allowing
we've
me to rant about this.
yeah, we hope that we've given people something to think about, maybe spend some more time on in the future. We're going to go to Tom, who has a social media update for us. Tom.
Hi, guys. Let's talk about some of the stuff that you can find right on our HCAM social media. This post is from our Facebook. It's about the Hopkinton Sunday Mass. 3 churches in Hopkinton have gotten together, and they will be hosting Sunday Mass every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m. live on HCAM TV, as well as our YouTube page. So you can find more information about that on our social media, as well as our website. This is from our Twitter page. I talked with Select Board Vice Chair John Catino yesterday about the Boston Marathon and the start line on Patriots Day. The point of that conversation is we certainly don't want people going to the start line on Patriots Day, as the Boston Marathon this year will take place on September 14th due to the virus, of course. And also, there's a message from Kelly Grill of the Hopkinton Center for the Arts. You can find that on our social media pages as well. And then also on our social media pages, we have information from the latest Hopkinton COVID-19 update. On our Facebook, there's a little breakdown of it, and there's a link where you could read more about the update. And then also, of course, you can find all the episodes of the Hopkinton Hangout Hour. We share the links right to our Facebook and Twitter pages. And of course, they are on our website at hcam.tv. And that is your social media update. So there you go. I think we're going to send it to Mike Tarosian for our next half hour. Mike, take it away.
Actually,
Hey, Tom. Oh, what?
I'm here too. I'm hosting the meeting, so I'm going to admit Darlene and Jesse.
Excellent. And before we let them in, Jim, I just want to say with Tom, also check the HCAM website for pictures and news stories. And at the top of the page, we have a list of restaurants that are still open in Hopkinton that is helping keeping us fed during this lovely time. So visit hcam.tv, and at the top there's a list of the restaurants with the latest hours, links to their menus, and support these local businesses. I can't say it enough. I mean, being involved in fundraisers, we're asking these businesses always to donate. It's time to give back and keep these people working.
All right, good job. So this half hour, my co-host Mike and I will be talking about working from home and finishing the college semester at home. And I'd like to welcome our guests. Darlene, say hello.
Get on mute.
Got to unmute.
All better.
All right. Hi.
I miss being in the studio on Fridays.
So do we. Oh my, you can't even believe it. It's definite. And introduce your daughter and what school she's going to.
This is Melissa. She's a sophomore at Framingham State. You guys know her pretty well.
Yeah. And Melissa, what are you studying?
Political science.
Oh, that's a good one. All right. And our second guest is Jesse. Jesse, hello.
Hi, how are you guys?
Very well. How are you?
Hanging in there.
All right. First step, Jesse, just tilt your camera down slightly. Good. Perfect. Awesome. So could you please introduce yourself for our audience?
Sure. My name's Jessie Mermell. I'm a candidate for Congress in the 4th Congressional District here in Massachusetts. So the race to succeed Joe Kennedy. And I am now running for the United States Congress from a couch in a pair of sweatpants. Although I've gotten up from the couch just for you guys.
All right. I think you're a little bit busier than just running for Congress too, Jesse. What else is going on in your life?
Well, I have to say that's the biggest thing. But
Okay.
Trying to make sure my family is safe and secure. I've got parents in Florida who are older and with underlying health conditions. Taking care of my significant others, not taking care of, they don't require that, but looking after and making sure they're well. My significant others, parents, we have a dog, trying to take care of ourselves, looking out for family and friends. For so many of us, that's a full-time job. And I know for folks who are parents, exponentially more so. So we're all busy and trying to do what we can to chip in and take care of the folks who are vulnerable out there right now. And I know experiencing a lot of insecurity.
Yes, absolutely. You hit the nail right in the head there. And we're going to talk a little bit about juggling work in this time of pandemic and caring for our loved ones. But right now, I'm interested, Melissa, in how you're doing with work, if attending school from home this semester.
I'm doing okay. Like, it's a lot harder to be focused when you have so many more distractions around you. And a lot of people like talking while you're trying to take like a time test or something.
Mm-hmm. Are your professors Zooming or do you think something else?
One of my professors is using Blackboard Collaborate and another one's using Zoom, and the other two aren't doing like virtual classes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What are you finding the most challenging as far as the course load, comparing it to, last semester you were sitting in a classroom, you having the professors present the material, and now I'm sure it's very new for them also to present this material online. Do you find that, are there any benefits to it as far as taking notes, or do they provide anything, or do you find it to be crazy different?
It's very different. Like, I feel like it's a lot harder because if you're not focusing like fully while they're talking, you have to kind of like reteach yourself the stuff, where in class it's like really easy to stay focused.
Mm-hmm. And how are you able to keep up with your friends?
That's really difficult because like we all go to different schools and we all are like have different levels of homework depending on what our professors are doing. Because some professors are making it easier and some professors are like, well, I'm going to double the assignments now so that like you actually learn stuff.
Wow. Are your professors doubling your assignments?
Not as much me, but some of my other friends are getting a lot more assignments.
That sounds a little harsh.
Yeah.
Well, you've been also pretty creative with games after they just came off of this game segment, right?
Well, yeah, we'll like video chat a lot and play like online games that way.
Mm-hmm. Give me an example of an online game that you like to play with your friends.
There's one called like Scribble.io. It's like Pictionary, but it's online and you like your own virtual room with your friends. And you can like add your own words in that you want to like appear and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. All right, Darlene, you're not in school.
I'm not in school, and what's not as unique for me is that I've had a home office for over 20 years, but the component was that I was always going out doing things and planning events. So I would maybe work 4 to 5 hours from home and then go out and do something, or I'd be at HCAM on Friday mornings. So it's extremely different than just saying, oh, I work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, last night I had a Zoom call and it was going into the evening, but Michael was an essential worker and had to be up at 5:30. And I was doing it in our bedroom, and he's eventually like, is it over? Is it over? Is it over? And then he just flipped the lights off. I'm like, guys, it's over.
Wow. Yeah, I know that. I'm actually in the lower level of my house, if you know what I mean. So what would you say, Darlene, do you find difficult about, being at home so much instead of being able to go out into a work environment and kind of just be at work?
Well, you are missing a lot of the routine, like Melissa said, and like, the connection with my friends. I don't see Patricia, I don't see Connie or anything. And being able to say, hey, let's go meet up at Co and have a glass of wine. That seems to be gone. We've done like some virtual cocktail parties. We're actually going to be doing something virtually in a few weeks for Jessie that she doesn't even know about yet. It's still like trying to connect, and it's harder. I have very severe asthma, so I don't even go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
It's really feeling trapped at home, and they'll call, is there anything you need? No, I don't know, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, we have a Zoom bomb back there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. One of the essential workers just came in.
All right. So Jessie, I'm curious, how do you run for office when you can't go out and knock on doors?
Honest to goodness, if you had told me that I would be running for the United States Congress like this, I never would have believed you. I mean, literally 5 weeks ago, my job was to be in as many rooms as possible, connecting with as many human beings as possible, right? And now it's not safe to do even a fraction of that. So, we're making this up as we go along, as everybody is. There's literally no playbook. There's no consultant, right? I can't call up someone and say, hey, how did you win that congressional race during the last global pandemic that shut down the whole planet? I mean, it's just that service is not available right now. And so we're trying to get creative. Obviously, we've gone virtual. We're one of the first campaigns to do that, hosting everything from our office opening, where we had one staffer walk around our office with a phone and show people the campaign office, and then Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley and I were in the final room of the tour, and folks could interview us and ask us questions remotely. We did my 40th birthday party virtually with about 50 of my closest friends. And I'll tell you a funny story. We had planned for that event before we went into lockdown, and had been cautiously optimistic that we might still be able to do some version of it in person. I mean, you remember those early days when things weren't so clear. And we had ordered a cake for 50 people, and thought the order had been changed to something for 10 or 12 people. It wasn't. And so my better half and I had a 50-person 40th birthday cake between the two of us. I can assure you that we did finish it. That was an in real life situation, not virtual. So there's some happy accidents that come from all of this. But we've had to switch how we get signatures for the campaign. We've had to switch how we fundraise. We've had to switch how we're engaging with voters. There's no possible way for me to recreate the experience of being with Darlene or Representative Dykma on Main Street in Hopkinton, grabbing a cup of coffee, or showing up at a clam boil in Fall River, or at the flea market in Rainham. There's no possible way for me to recreate that online. But there are things that we can do to be in community to create those connections. So we're doing that. We're teaming up with local partners to host community-based conversations. We just did one in Medfield the other night with 20 or 30 folks. More to come in Attleboro and most of the communities in the district. So it's not the same. I'd be lying if I told you that it was, but I think we're doing some things that are creative and thoughtful, and still allowing us to have that two-way conversation with voters, and make sure we're also building the resources and the infrastructure that we need to win in September.
I have just got to say that my hat is off to you for eating a cake for 50 people. That's tremendous.
We cut off a big chunk of it and delivered it to some friends, but we were left with probably 2/3 of it. And it took us, this is an embarrassing thing to admit, but 6 days. In 6 days, we ate the whole cake.
That's tremendous. So I'm curious, the first tool that comes to mind is the first tool that everybody watching this is thinking about. Oh, they're just Zooming. They're Zooming and having all their meetings that way. I'm sure you have an account, at least 100 people, maybe even more, could all join together. Is there anything else, any other tools that you use with your team to reach out and get your message across?
Yeah, we've been trying a bunch of things. So Zoom obviously is essential, right? So many of us had barely ever used it before, and now it is literally the center of all of our social lives, right? So Zoom and Facebook Live have been hugely important. We're trying everything we can think of. So we created coloring book pages for all of these parents who are trying to figure out how to occupy their kids. You can download a coloring book image of my dog holding a Jesse Mermell for Congress campaign sign, have them color it in, mail it to us, we'll hang it up in the office to help us decorate when it's safe to do so. I've been doing direct-to-camera videos almost every day talking about issues or what's going on. And it'll surprise you to hear this, but I screw those up on a regular basis. And so we released a bloopers reel, because this is a serious time and requires serious attention, but it doesn't mean that I have to take myself seriously, right? So things like that that get out in front of folks. We're very, very committed to relational organizing, asking neighbors to reach out to neighbors and ask them to sign our signature papers, to learn about the campaign. So much of how we're building for these Zoom events is through relational organizing. Asking Darlene, who are the 10 people you know and who trust your opinion and your judgment, you can ask them to show up and participate in this event. So Zoom does feel like the heart of it, but there's so many other tools that we have that are much lower tech, that are very, very different, and are helping us stay in front of folks. And the interesting thing is we're learning something with every week that goes by, right? We're learning about new things that we can do. We're trying things that don't work, You know, you have to be willing to do that. We put out crossword puzzles with themes of trivia in the 4th Congressional District. And even though I'm a big nerd and thought that that was really cool, nobody else really liked it, if I'm being
It's funny. I thought that was cool.
Darlene, this is why you and I get along, because we should.
And it was funny because the same week I got that, I'm an alumni of Regis, and they just sent out like a card, like "Hope you're doing well," and it had a crossword puzzle on history of the school, and I was like, I actually took a picture of the card of the crossword. I'm like, this is the coolest thing.
All right, so I'm not nuts. There's a secret market of crossword puzzle nerds, but it wasn't our single most popular tactic. But you got to try stuff and fail. I mean, that's how you learn. And so we're willing to do that. And I'm super proud of my team for the way that they've pivoted and handled this.
Nice. Darlene,
Yes.
you are one of the most connected and everywhere people that I know. So I'm curious.
Well, next to Mike. He's quiet over there.
But just not as political. Just not as political.
So what I'm curious is what tools, what online resources, what stuff are you using in any arena that you want to talk about that you're involved in?
I mean, we had the Hopkinton Democratic Town Committee last night. We did it on Zoom. I have a Poly Arts Committee meeting tonight. It'll be on Zoom. We're actually reviewing the scholarship applications tonight via Zoom. And it's been pretty much Zoom. Some Facebook Live. I've been at the cabaret night that HCA did and open mic night that, watching that. Ricardo Barraza has been doing Saturday night concerts and tagging into those. And that's been great. But basically it's been Zoom, and I'm not the world's best texter. I pick up the phone more. Jesse will tell you that. Something that I could ask someone a question in 7 seconds, I'll still pick up the phone call, ask, and be done, more than wanting to text it.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is more difficult because I do a ton of face-to-face meetings. I meet with clients all the time, and you're trying to figure out what fits. My boss currently has COVID, so there's a very core group of us trying to hold together the whole business.
Mm-hmm.
And running around, and he can't even be on the phone. He's coughing so bad. So literally we text him early in the morning, and then we'll touch base maybe once later in the day, and we just keep going.
Wow, that's really something. Wow.
But I think over time, everyone's going to know someone personally that's been affected by this.
Right. Melissa, I'm wondering, you said earlier that you take timed tests.
Yeah.
Can you describe that, how that process works?
So my first time test I took yesterday, and I had like 90 minutes on Blackboard, which my school uses a lot, to take an open note test. And so I had to just answer all the multiple choice and open response questions using my resources, but it was a long test, so.
Mm-hmm. And does all these students take it at the exact same time?
No. So the Blackboard one, anybody could take it today or yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one I have for a different class, people can take it at any point in time, and that one's not timed. It really just depends on the class, whether they have a time that it opens up and that's the only time you can take it or not.
Mm-hmm. I see. What about clubs? Were we involved in any clubs or activities on campus?
Yeah, I am actually the president of the Young Democrats Club on campus.
Of course you are.
What a coincidence.
That doesn't fall far from the tree, Darlene.
You raise
I'm
them right.
shocked to hear that.
Oh my God.
Everyone's shocked to hear that one.
That's awesome.
But you do a lot of fitness stuff.
So being in a leadership role there, how have you handled not being there?
So a lot of different clubs are doing online things where they have either a Zoom speaker talking to a group of people or a Zoom meeting type thing like that. But for us personally, we're not doing a ton because a lot of the other leadership members don't have the best Wi-Fi, or they live really far away. And we had some big events last semester, so we're not doing too much until we get back to campus, but yeah.
I see. And Jesse, can you tell us how old your kids are?
Oh, I actually don't have kids, but
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought that you did.
Yeah, I made a mistake.
no,
Okay.
no kids. I have a dog who turns 9 next month, but
All right. What kind of a dog?
She's getting like a great big biscuit cake that serves 50.
For 50. Yeah, exactly. And she would gladly eat the whole thing. But no kids. And, I have so much respect for my friends who are, going through all of this and trying to take care of kids, whether they're teenagers or toddlers and everything in between. It is so much work and so much stress.
Mhm.
That, it is a lot what I'm managing, and I know it's a fraction of what they're going through. So.
Right. Actually, I want to follow up on something, but first, I think Mike has something he wants to ask.
Yeah, I got a couple questions. Melissa, first, not only are you learning politics at school, but you're doing politics now locally? You're involved?
Yeah, I'm a what's it called member?
She's an associate.
Member of the
Associate.
Hopkinton Democratic Town Committee.
Yes, I remember seeing that. I think I went up to help with turn on the sound at your last meeting before the last time we could meet in a room. I came up and then I learned that. I says, "Oh wow, you're really stepping in right away," which is fantastic to hear. Um, and a question for your mom. All right, you had the home office. I have never worked at home until now, and it is so hard. And I have no distractions except for the new puppy. I have no
Very cute.
distractions. Thank you. And what advice can you give to someone who's never worked at home to try to stay focused, keep up on the emails and so forth? I mean, I'm always asking Jim for advice. He knows this. He knows how hard this is killing me. He knows that I'm out hands on. How do I? What you get some tips for working at home?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is that, you actually work longer hours and more because you feel like you're always on. It's like, oh, you can always pick up your device and answer emails and things like that. But like this morning, I was up at 4:30. Cheryl Ann was going to be calling into the station at 7. She's one that had to be more scripted and get, worked on. So I started working by 5 this morning. I was working, and you just keep going. And then it's not like you take typical lunch breaks. You just kind of fiddle it in. But I do set like projects because until now I had 2 major clients, the radio station in Milford and a healthcare compliance company, which is I'm furloughed on right now. So I would have to say, okay, this is their time is up and I have to focus, the next 4 hours on this project. And then, the volunteer stuff I do, I have to weigh that out and say, okay, I can't even get on a call with these guys until after 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
So, Jesse, we actually got a question on YouTube for you.
Yeah,
It's
shoot.
kind of a hark back to the last segment. Somebody's wondering what your favorite board game is.
Oh man. Let's see. I'm gonna have to say a classic Monopoly because I beat my significant other's butt in it the other night and very much enjoyed that. But I've been on a real puzzle streak over the past 4 weeks. To be clear, not a successful one, right? I started a 500-piece puzzle and got through it, and I was feeling like really, really in a puzzle groove and very confident. And then I ordered a 1,000-piece puzzle of all these different like candy images, and I have been put in my place. Like this puzzle is defeating me epically. So maybe I need to go back to board games. That was more successful. I should stick with Monopoly, but right now I'm in a puzzle zone. It is not going well, but I am in the puzzle zone.
Yeah, the thing I like about puzzles is you could just like walk by, do a couple pieces, and then walk away.
Yeah.
The rest of my
Melissa's
family
addicted to
humiliates me for it, though. They just they like
There's
go
one on our coffee table
I get a big
almost
section.
all the time.
Jim,
Yeah.
I do the same thing with the puzzles like you. You can just walk by. I feel like I'm like those guys that have that chess game that goes on forever.
Yep.
That you just walk by and like move a chess piece.
Yeah.
That's how I feel when I do a puzzle.
Right. So, Jesse, I want to ask a question. Did you say your parents are in Florida?
They are. They live in St. Augustine, Florida.
So, I just can't imagine what it's like during a pandemic having your parents so far away. Could you tell me just a little bit about that?
I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. I grew up in a small farming town in the sticks of Pennsylvania, but it's like a 4.5 to 5 hour drive from here. And my parents are both thankfully still with us, but they've had their health issues over the years. It's part of why they moved to Florida. My dad's been battling prostate cancer for about 15 years now, and the medicines that he's on have made the winters up north harder and harder. And so 3 years ago this summer, they moved to Florida, knowing that I used to be able to drive to them if God forbid something happened. A 4 or 5 hour drive isn't nothing, but I could hop in my car and be there. The idea that now, even without coronavirus, right, they're so far away, and we had no connections to Florida, so there's not, some family friend I've known for decades or Aunt so and so. They're really there on their own, though they've made wonderful friends these past 3 or so years. Now to go through that in this crisis, I lie awake at night, and I have all respect for my parents, but if I'm honest, I snapped at them the other day because my father, he went to CVS because they ran out of multivitamins.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is no risk of scurvy, Mom and Dad. Like,
That's right.
you're gonna, like, I can go online, I'll order the vitamins. You might miss a few days, but like, you're gonna be okay. And they went to CVS, and I was so angry with them because I'm an epic warrior. I'm very, very good at it. And so I'm playing through all these scenarios in my head. And, the Florida governor is, to put it mildly, being an idiot. They're reopening the beaches today. I mean, it's insane the way they are not managing this in Florida, particularly given the elderly population there. And when I think about what might be possible and the idea that it would take me forever to get to them, they would have to be separated, and I couldn't be with either of them. I mean, yeah, it's a lot. And I worry that my yelling at them didn't work. They're both very, very stubborn.
Yeah, I know. I got a pair like that too. And one of my parental units, either my in-laws or my parents, were like, well, they had to go to doc shops. Oh, that's fine. So then they stopped at the Verizon store on the way home. I'm like, what? Why would you stop at the Verizon store?
Yeah.
It's hard. It's really hard, especially because I find it hard. You can't see it. You can't see it, but it can kill you.
Yeah.
It can kill you.
And, my mom's a retired nurse. She keeps talking to me about how horribly she feels about what nurses are going through and how she can't even imagine, the lack of resources, the high caseloads, all of it. It's one of these do as I say, not as I do, right? She knows how awful it is. And yet the other day, my father, he went to the store to get a 6-pack of beer and flowers for my mom. Like,
Really sweet to bring back flowers.
Like, how can you be so?
That was 2 stops though.
An idiot.
I know. All right, listen, Jesse, our time runs short. I truly appreciate you spending this time with us. And
thank you for having me, and stay safe, everybody.
Yes, and I hope that you stay in touch with us as your campaign progresses. I think it'll be really interesting to follow this uncharted territory of running a campaign during a pandemic.
Making it up as we go along, but count me in. Let me know. I'd love to come back.
All right, take care.
Bye, guys. Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks, Jesse.
Darlene, thank you so much for your help in organizing this segment. It was really, really interesting conversation. And I'd like to have you and your daughter back too to talk about like how things are happening and how your boss is doing at work and how the work is progressing.
Tom knows him really well too because he does the sports at our station.
Yes, yep.
And stuff, but
yeah,
it's trying. I mean, he's 2 years old. I just heard that 50% of the patients at the Mary Morse nursing home in Natick have tested positive.
No kidding. Wow. That's a huge number.
Yeah, my friend's mother, 92-year-old mother has it there.
Mm-hmm. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh man, I hope she does all right. That's a tough situation. All right, Melissa, keep up the good work.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're great to catch up with you as the semester nears its end and hear how it turned out and what your summer is looking like.
Yep.
All right, take care of the both of you.
All right,
Bye,
thank you guys.
See you.
Bye.
All right. If Matt, we have actually 2:59. That is the end of our show. People, thank you so much for watching us. Please tuning in next week, and stay safe and stay connected with us. I hope you have a great day. Mike, thanks.
Thanks, Jim.